everyone, Yom Tov, and welcome to the very first of your real crime stories. I hope you like the new intro. Yet again, my friend Elle has done me proud and done herself proud. She's done a fantastic job. I hope you love the intro and the outro as much as I do. Now, before I go any further with today's story, I want to ask you a favour, whether you're of any faith or none. My husband's daughter has been tested positive for COVID-19. We only found out about an hour ago, and as you can imagine, my husband's just shocked and really cut up because he can't go and see her. It's mild at the moment. She's in self-isolation for 14 days. We've got inhalers if she needs them. We can pop them through a letterbox if it comes to that. But if you could pray, if you have faith, would you please offer up a prayer for Bill's daughter? If you have no faith, if you could just say something like, I hope she gets better soon. She is a strong girl. She's got a good, strong constitution. So my gut feeling is that she's going to get through this. I mean, obviously I've told my husband that, and I believe it when I tell him it, that I know she's going to get through this. And he does believe me, but at the moment he's still in a state of shock. So I would be very, very grateful for your prayers. I really would. Thank you. So, the title of today's video is Sharon Carr, the Devil's Daughter. And I'll give you a few statistics and then I'm going to get on with the story. Sharon Carr is the youngest female killer that, has been charged and convicted of a murder in the United Kingdom. She was 12 years old when she committed this crime. It happened in June of 1992. And the victim was a trainee hairdresser called Katie Rackliff. So today's case is a homicide. There was only one homicide committed. It was Carr. Excuse me. It was Carr doing what she did to Katie. So, like I said, I'll start off by giving you a few of the statistics and then I'll get on with the story. So, like I said, as I'm referring to bits from my laptop, its classification is of a homicide. The characteristics are of a juvenile, age 12, the youngest female murderer to be sentenced in the United Kingdom. Number of victims, 1. Date of the murder, June 7th, 1992. The date of arrest was January 1996. The victim profile was Katie Rackliff, age 18. The method of murder was stabbing with a knife, 32 times. The location was Camberley, Surrey, England, United Kingdom. The status was sentenced to life imprisonment for a minimum of 14 years. That was the tariff that she was given. This was handed out to her on March the 25th, 1997. But this was reduced to 12 years on the 10th of December 2003. Right, so I'm now going to go ahead and tell you the story. Sharon Carr was born in Belize on the 21st of December 1979. Her parents came over to the UK and they split up not long afterwards. She spent time with both parents, predominantly with her mother. There were problems early on with Sharon. She was killing animals. Now we know this to be pretty common when you're dealing with psychopaths. So she was obviously displaying signs of being a psychopath very early on. Now, as I say, she was 12 years old when this crime was committed. Katie had been at a disco in a local nightclub in Camberley. In fact, I think it was in a place called Farnborough in Hampshire, which was fairly close. Carr and two youths were in a car, and somehow I think they must have offered Katie a lift, and she got into the car with them. An argument ensued. The youths stopped the car, they got out, and Sharon Carr proceeded to use a knife with a 6-inch blade, and the wounds that she inflicted on Katie were such that the knife went straight through her body from one side to the other. She mutilated her breasts, a vagina, and her anus so badly that the police believed that the murder had been acted out by a male. They were looking for a male. The other reason that they were looking for a male is that when everything came to light, they could not believe that a 12-year-old girl would have the strength to drag the body out of a car and dump it nearby. They had no idea that Sharon Carr was the murderer. Now, 2 years later, to the very day, 7th of June 1994, Sharon Carr was arrested for the attempted stabbing. In fact, I think she actually did stab the girl. It was a 13-year-old girl that she was at school with. And for that, she was sent to a juvenile detention centre. And it was while she was at the juvenile detention centre where she was causing an awful lot of havoc while she was there. She was attacking other inmates. She was attacking members of staff. She would try to strangle them. She would try to get hold of implements to stab them with. It was at that time that Sharon started to brag about this murder that she had committed. And the police were called. They interviewed her, and then they went and found her diaries. And it was what was in the diaries that absolutely shocked them, because she bragged about this murder and what she had done and the part she had to play in it. And I'm going to read to you a news report that was written at about that time. so it gives you some more information about her. Now, on March the 26th, 1997, was when Sharon Carr was convicted of the murder of Katie Rackliff. And I'll just read to you the news report that was written at that time. Sharon Carr, a girl obsessed with death and violence, secured her place in criminal history yesterday as Britain's youngest female murderer. She had killed at the age of 12, a savage attack in which a teenage hairdresser was mutilated with 29 stab wounds. It was later found that it was 32 stab wounds. The victim, Katie Rackliff, had been picked out at random as she walked home from a nightclub in June of 1992. The trial at Winchester Crown Court was told that in the years that followed, Carr seemed to be exultant over the killing, and yet haunted by it. She was endlessly writing about the murder and drawing pictures of a knife. Samples of her notes were graphic. In one she said, "I am a killer. Killing is my business, and business is good." In another she wrote, "I was born to be a murderer. Killing for me is a mass turn-on, and it makes me so high I never want to come down. Every night I see the devil in my dreams, sometimes even in my mirror. But then I realise it was just me." 4 years after the murder, a diary entry stated, "I bring the knife into her chest. Her eyes are closing. She's pleading with me, so I bring the knife to her again and again. I don't want to hurt her, but I do need to do violence to her. I need to overcome her beauty, her serenity, her security. There I see her face when she died. I know she feels her life being slowly drawn from her, and I hear her gasp. I guess she was trying to breathe. The air stops at the back of her throat. I know all of her life her breathing has worked, but it doesn't now, and I'm joyful." Were these the fantasies of a deeply disturbed mind, as the defence claimed? Or, as the Crown held, the grim memories of an evil and precocious schoolgirl who gloried in what she'd done? The jury had no doubt. It was the writings and subsequent verbal confessions that convicted Carr. There was no forensic evidence, but as the prosecution pointed out, she had knowledge of the murder not available to the public. She graphically described one particular injury, details of which the police had deliberately withheld, and she also knew that a bracelet had been stolen from Katie Rackliff, knowledge that only the killer would have. In June of 1994, almost 2 years to the day after Katie's murder, Carr attacked a pupil called Anne-Marie Clifford with a knife, for no apparent reason, at Collingwood College Comprehensive in Camberley, Surrey. While awaiting trial, she was sent to an assessment centre where she tried to strangle 2 members of staff. 2 accounts of actual bodily harm were taken into account when she was convicted of wounding Anne-Marie and sentenced to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. At Bulwood Hall Young Offenders Institution, staff alerted police after Carr began talking about the killing of Katie Rackliff on the telephone to her friends and family, and she wrote about it in her diaries. She also began to give details of what she'd done to a prison officer on whom she had developed a crush, as well as talking about it to another probation officer. The Rackliff killing had remained unsolved despite 4 years of intensive investigation by police. Some of the knife blows that Katie suffered in the attack had gone straight through her body and out through the other side. Her sexual organs were mutilated, her clothes pulled up, even though there was no evidence of a sexual assault. Detectives seized Carr's writings and drawings and questioned her for 27 hours. She gave 3 different accounts of how Katie had been killed, but in all of them, the central theme was that she had repeatedly stabbed her. In 2 of the versions, Carr said that she was with 2 boys in a car at the time of the attack, and they had engaged in sexual activity with Katie before dumping the body. She named the 2 boys. Police interviewed them, but they provided alibis for each other and were eliminated from the inquiry. However, the prosecution could not satisfactorily explain how Katie, who weighed 8 stone 8 pounds, was dragged across the pavement and around a corner by a 12-year-old girl. Carr continued with her writing even after being interviewed by the police. In April 1996, the month before she was charged, she wrote, "I'm not like one of those pretty girls who breaks down due to a guilty conscience. Through 6.5 years of causing people grief, I still haven't found one." On the 7th of June, a diary read, "Respect to Katie Rackliff, 4 years today." Sadistic violence seemed to be part of her life. She had killed animals. It does give the details here, they're too graphic, and I think they would be too upsetting as it is. So I'm not going to read them to you. If you do want to know about it, then you can Google the story of Sharon Carr, the Devil's Daughter. Detective Sergeant Paul Clements, who interviewed Carr extensively, recalled, "It was almost as if she was in another world. What sticks in my mind about talking to her was the coldness. Most people that you interview show some feeling as to why they've done what they've done. But with her, there was a complete absence of emotion and reason." Carr was born in Belize in 1981 and brought up by her mother and stepfather, a soldier. After moving to England, the family settled in Camberley, Surrey. Her parents split up and she was briefly fostered, but after a month she returned to the home of her mother. At school, her teachers initially described her as polite and helpful, but her behaviour deteriorated and she became disruptive and attention-seeking. Criminal psychologist Gordon Tressler said, "This is a difficult case to understand. One can find precedents of young children killing other children, but in this case, it was a child killing someone who was just almost an adult. This is an extremely dangerous person because she is clearly prepared to kill without an adequate motive. That makes her conduct very unpredictable and very dangerous. She is a great danger to the public." Now that was back in 1997. She got married to a fellow inmate of Broadmoor in 2001. His name was Robbie Laney. She was 21, he was 24. Various prisoners attended the ceremony, which lasted 20 minutes. Relatives were also invited to attend, but they were very quick to assure the relatives and members of the public that the marriage was not allowed to be consummated. Whether or not that marriage is still ongoing, I don't know. Now, I did find a news article that was written on the 29th of March this year, so it's bringing the case details right up to date. and I'll read that news article to you. It was written in the Sun newspaper. The article was called "Throw Away the Key." Britain's youngest female killer, dubbed the Devil's Daughter, faces life in jail after fantasising about killing an inmate. Britain's youngest female murderer faces the rest of her life in jail after plotting to kill another inmate. Sharon Carr, dubbed the Devil's Daughter, lost a legal fight to have prison restrictions on her eased. It means Carr, who was just 12 when she knifed stranger Katie Rackliff, 18, to death in 1992, will continue to spend much of her jail time in solitary confinement. Her case was derailed after it was discovered she'd fantasised about murdering an inmate. High Court Judge Mr. Justice Julian Knowles wrote, Carr had disclosed thoughts of wanting to murder another resident by splitting her head open with a flask and throwing her down the stairs to snap her neck. Carr, now 40, was convicted of killing Katie in 1997 and sentenced to life. A 12-year minimum tariff has long since expired, but she is thought too unstable to be released and remains in Her Majesty's Prison Bronzefield in south-west London. Well, she launched a legal challenge against her restricted prisoner status, which basically meant that she was in the SEG, also known as segregation. She had to be kept in solitary confinement because she was too volatile, too violent. She said that she should have been involved in the process to have her released from segregation, but the judge, Mr. Justice Knowles, declined to have her present at the review. And it now means she faces being locked up in a high security unit indefinitely. When they say indefinitely, it means more or less in prison terms, she's not getting out because she's far too dangerous. And there's an expression in UK law that says being detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. At one time, that meant that someone was going to be imprisoned and never released. It's not quite so stringently enforced these days, which I personally think it should be, but I think the Americans have it right. In America, life means life. Over here, it's 15 years, or depending on the severity of the crime. But many murderers will get 15 years, and if they behave well, they can be out of prison between 7 and 10 years. So people say life doesn't mean life anymore. And you can understand the victims feeling that way, the victims' families. They want justice, and sometimes it feels they don't get it. So that is the story of Sharon Carr. And I think I'll round it up by giving my thoughts on this story. I know it happened, I'd just forgotten it, as happens with some certain cases. I don't know why I'd forgotten it, because reading up about it now horrifies me as to how I could have forgotten it. Maybe I just blocked it because it was too horrible to think about. What Sharon Carr did to Katie showed, as the police thought, a level of violence that could only possibly come from a man. They were looking for a man for 4 years. So to find out a 12-year-old girl had committed such a heinous crime shocked them to the core. And when you think about it, it's incredibly shocking that a 12-year-old would want to enact on those thoughts and have those thoughts. Yes, she has a mental illness, but there was obviously something else there. She's actually said herself, she felt she was born to be a murderer, and she glorifies in it. Some people are born evil. I believe she was, to do the things she did. Some people are just born evil. I know I'll probably be criticised for believing that, but it is just my opinion. And there are certain people, the evil shows early, as in this case, and the same as in another case, that of little Jamie Bulger, who was murdered by John Venables and Robert Thompson, and they were 10 years old at the time. That case I've never forgotten. I don't think I could ever cover that, because it's one of those cases that haunts you. In other cases, it takes years and years before evil doing is committed. Like Chris Watts in his mid-30s to commit the crime that he committed. There's no understanding it. So, to wrap this up, I hope that the criminal justice system does its due diligence and never releases Sharon Carr from prison or a mental hospital or whatever building they think is the best to hold her down and strictly watched, tightly watched, because she's obviously very volatile and very violent. So what did you think of your first real crime story? I found it very shocking. But then homicides are. I wanted to bring you a story that you possibly hadn't heard of. I mean, I've been asked to do stories about Jack the Ripper. Sorry, excuse me. I've been asked to cover that. And I've been asked to cover the Mafia and Al Capone, and I mean, there are all manner of crimes. So I'm sure not all of them will be as graphic as this. But I just wanted to show you that murderers come at any age, either sex, at any time. You never know when they're going to come, who's going to commit it. It's all very, very shocking. And even now, even though it happened a long time ago, my thoughts are with Katie's family. I know the stress of it. Our parents split up through all the stress and the strain of the trial and being without Katie. Because Katie's mum, Helen, described Katie as a jolly girl who was naive, who was too trusting, who used to say to her, "Mum, I'll be fine. You worry too much." So, please let me know what you thought about your first true crime story in the comments. And if you have any suggestions for future stories, please let me know and I'll see what I can do. I want to thank you again for being here, and thank you very, very much for watching. And as much as you can enjoy a true crime story, I do hope that you enjoyed it. I will see the Paranormal Crew on Friday for episode 11 of I Made a Deal with an Angel. And we'll have to see what Asmodai and Sarah are going to get up to as inquisitors, won't we? So that should be quite exciting. And for all the other Haveners and all those who come to watch, I will see you again very, very soon. So please, it's going to be like a mantra until all this is over. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Wash your hands. Hot drinks, hot snacks, hot soups. And just look after yourselves. Because I worry about all of you. As you're all very precious to me. Okay? And if you're not going to listen to anybody else, listen to me. Just look after yourselves. Okay, guys. I love you. And I'll see you again very soon. Take care. Bye for now.